Hello, BookTube. We are continuing, God help us all, my 2024 library tour. We are still on Bookcase 2, we are on Bookshelf 3, and we are going to progress as fast as we can through these. These are all mass market paperbacks. So we have Lesser Del Rey. I have very little Lesser Del Rey. Some short stories, some anthologies. But I also have this novel, The 11th Commandment, this classic old science fiction artwork that I haven't gotten to. We have the Best Of series. We've seen those, right? Maybe not. Maybe we haven't seen any so far. Oh, no, we saw the Best Of Cordwainer Smith. Del Rey did... actually, Lesser Del Rey, exactly what I mean. I have plenty of Daw paperbacks, but not all the Donald Walheim in the world. I have plenty of Del Rey paperbacks, but not all the Lester Del Rey in the world. We saw the Best of Cordwainer Smith, but they did a whole series of those in paperbacks. I really like them. I really like the choosing that goes along with them. I will definitely gobble them up as I see them. But this is the Best of Philip K. Dick. Not a science fiction author that I like. It's the introductions by John Brunner, who's a science fiction author that I very much do like. And they work as a perfect tandem to each other. When I tell Dude Bros that I don't like Philip K. Dick, they say, oh, well, you know, he's just that kind of a writer. You don't like how experimental he is or how trippy he is or whatnot. And then I tell them that I like John Brunner very much. I think he's one of the great science fiction authors. And he's all of those things. And that sends them scurrying for the internet because they've never heard of John Brunner. Because they get all their reading tips from Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan. but I have gone through this. I've beaten this paperback up a little. There's always a part of me that hopes that I will someday come to like Philip K. Dick and thereby gain the ear of a whole bunch of readers who don't like anyone else. Okay. Then we have the illustrated Roger Zelazny in a mass market paperback. How is that? You don't see this very often. This has the whole of the doors of his face, the lamps of his mouth, and a rose for Ecclesiastes, and it also has a Shadowjack short story. All illustrated. Some in color, some in black and white. Terrific thing to have. And then we have our Carl Edward Wagner. This is Bloodstone. With a classic cover there. This is epic sword and sorcery that I just love. Okay, speaking of Daw paperbacks, Donald A. Walheim, we have The Stormlord by Tanith Lee in this format. I tend to grab these things whenever I see them either, except if they're gore novels by John Norman. Not all that interested in gore novels by John Norman. They were all in those. They were all in those yellow paperbacks. Then we have The Magic Goes Away by Larry Niven, also illustrated. From a brief period when mass market paperbacks were illustrated. We have The Magic of Recluse by Elie Modesitt, with this lovely cover here of just a wagon in the rain. That's all it is. There's no bolts of magic or anything like that. I read this thing when it first came out. When was that? 1991. I quite liked it. I think I read 2 or 3 that followed and then lost my way. So I stopped reading them and stopped reading this author. There just wasn't enough to call me back. And days and days ago, years and years ago, I don't know when, months and months ago, I suddenly remembered this mass market paperback and that I enjoyed it, that I enjoyed reading it. And at the time, I don't know when it was, maybe 2 years ago, maybe it was during COVID, maybe that explains it. I looked up this mass market paperback online, and it was hugely expensive. I just told myself, the Brattle will provide. Just wait, the Brattle will have it. Oh, great. Oh, fantastic. All right, this is by David Drake and the aforementioned Carl Edward Wagner. This is their novel Killer, adapted from a short story by the same title. This is set in ancient Rome. Don't let the laser guns fool you. There are no laser guns in this book. This is set in ancient Rome when a star beast, a semi-intelligent killer alien, blue skin, scales, incredibly dangerous, unbelievably sharp claws, is found by the Empire's beast handlers, the people who gather animals from the hinterlands of Africa and bring them through long caravan routes to Rome for the arena. Only this thing is like nothing that any beast handler has ever seen. The other animals don't want it to be anywhere near them. and hijinks ensue because it's not just a Roman beast handler who is dealing with this. It's also an alien beast handler in disguise on Earth, and it is fantastic. What a novel this is! What a terrific novel. Okay, then we have Source Point by Ellen Kushner, classic fantasy. I had this in this mass market paperback. This must be from the 80s. Yeah, 1987. I had this, read it, loved it, and it fell apart on me. So I was happy to find another one. Okay, then we have a mass market paperback of John Myers' Silver Lock, another classic of fantasy. We seem to be hitting a little vein of classic fantasy. Not sure how well this would hold up to reading. I think I have an ebook of this, but I'm not sure how well any of these mass markets would hold up, except for the ones that I know, where I've done it. Okay, then we have an anthology called The Mighty Swordsman. He's having a bad day, isn't he? That is not a good way to swing a sword, just in case you're wondering. That is a really terrible way. This has tons of junk all over it. This features brand new, never before published adventures of Conan and Thongor. So who all is in here? Who all have we got here? Lynn Carter, Roger Zelazny, John Brunner, Bjorn Nyberg, Michael Moorcock, and Robert E. Howard, Beyond the Black River. Not a bad anthology, as far as people go. Oh, okay. All right, then we have classic. Oh, it's not a trilogy, because it's gone on and on and on. For all I know, it's still going on. Anne Rice wrote a romance novel called Interview with the Vampire. Came out with a romancy cover, sold in the romance section, grouped with other romances on the spinner rack at the dry goods store, but it lay dormant for a while and then took off. It's the story of a New Orleans vampire and the young man that he turns, and it's steamy in every possible sense of that word, and the homoerotic undertones of most vampire fiction is right at the surface of the Interview with a Vampire. And the mopey young man in Interview with a Vampire, who is turned into a vampire, continues to mope throughout the book. He is upstaged at every point by the vampire who turns him, a vampire named Lestat. And eventually, Anne Rice wrote a sequel called The Vampire Lestat. So we have the Interview with the Vampire. It didn't look like this. The original paperback didn't look like this, with the gothic lettering. I like it very much. But then she decided to write a sequel, a much bigger book called The Vampire Lestat. A much bigger book, a much more successful book. Not commercially, just as a reading experience, much more successful, from Lestat's point of view. And I remember when I first read this when it came out in a little red mass market paperback. I don't know that this ever came out as a hardcover originally. This sold like crazy. So did Interview with a Vampire after a bit. But this just... you read this book, I don't know if this ever came out originally as a hardcover, but there was no chance whatsoever that the next one would come out as a hardcover. And I remember I was thinking, okay... I guess there were some loose ends in Interview with a Vampire. You could write a sequel. This is going to be a whole book about that guy from that book. And then right at the beginning of this book, Lestat narrates the novel. And right at the beginning of the book, he says, I don't know how much you believed from Interview with a Vampire, but none of it was true. I thought, yay, I'm on board. And it's terrific. And then there was a third book, Queen of the Damned, that's bigger, far more operatic. And these three I love. These three of what went on to become the Vampire Chronicles, I love. I think they're genuinely successful. Vampire Chronicles go on from there, and they are not generally successful after that. You would think that some of them would be right up my alleys. They're taking... Anne Rice takes a page from Chelsea Quinn Yarborough and sets a lot of her vampire novels, or subsequent ones, in different periods in history, including ancient Rome and the Renaissance. You'd think that would be right up my line. But... I think they got thinner and more hysterical as they went along. Just not nearly as enjoyable as the first three. Which is why the first three are the only ones that I have. I think I have all of them as ebooks, but they're the only ones I have as mass market paperbacks. And then we have book number 1 in another series that went on and on and on. This is Barry Sadler. This is Casca, the Eternal Mercenary, with that great Is that 70s cover art? Is that right? 1979, yeah. But this is I think that's 1980s reprint cover art. And you see there in the cover there, you see Nero fiddling while Rome burns, but you also see the crucifixion. And that is because that is Casca's origin story. He is a Roman centurion who is condemned at the crucifixion of Jesus to stay alive on earth until Jesus comes again. He will be not the wandering Jew, but the wandering Roman. He will be the wandering warrior. And that is what has been true for millennia when this book opens. And we're in modern day warfare, and a man with his head blasted open by artillery is brought into a MASH tent. They despair that he will live, but one of the nurses notices that in a mere hour, parts of his head have started to grow back, parts of his skull have started to regenerate. And that's what Casca is. We follow him, these books, by Barry Sadler and then by another author. They bounce all around in time. We get basically Casca's adventures. I don't particularly like these books much. I like the premise, of course, as I would, but I don't particularly like the execution of a lot of the books, so I don't have any of them except for number 1. There are a ton of these things. In fact, are the Casca novels still being written? Could that be true? I can't remember. Is it Gore? John Norman's Gore that's still being written, or is it the Casca novels, or is it both? I don't even know. Then we have Kevin J. Anderson. This is The Last Days of Krypton, a Superman novel with, you're not going to be able to really make it out, but there you go. There's a hologram on the cover. A holograph, or whatever you call this thing. It was brand new when this thing came out in the 90s, I think. Did this come out in the 90s? When did you come out? 2007. It's boring. Kevin J. Anderson is largely a boring author, but it's canonical literature for me. I mean, this is the story of the planet Krypton in its final days. More or less the classical story. So not the planet Krypton as it is today, as it is in DC continuity today, where I believe that not only Jor-El, the father of Superman, and Lara, the mother of Superman, but also, I think, in the last revamp for DC Comics, literally every other person on Krypton. So those two, Superman's father and mother, and also every other person on Krypton, is a black lesbian. I'm pretty sure that's the current DC continuity. But back here, it wasn't. Back here, Jor-El was not a battle-scarred psychopath who raised, his grandson to be a weirdo. Instead, he's a valiant scientist, the lone voice of reason, telling the Kryptonian Science Council that this planet is doomed. Krypton is going to explode, and we need to take steps to stop that or to escape it. They ignore him. That's this story in this book, and it is a little boring, but I couldn't not have it. There's no way I could not have it. Okay, then we have a novel. This is by George Alec Effinger, whose other novels I do not have, and also Gardner Dozois. This is Nightmare Blue. I must have grabbed this from the Brattle and tossed it on the pile. I don't think I've read this. It's just here among my papers. Then we have Raymond Feist. This is another one like The Magic of Recluse, where I remember it fondly, even though the book really didn't do a lot for me. This is Magician Apprentice, with the old cover artwork here. Classic, stereotypical fantasy artwork. And there is a sequel in the same artwork and the same format that I don't believe I have. Oh, then we have another Daw. This is To Die in Talbar. By Roger Zelazny, not one of his major novels. Certainly not his Nine Princes in Amber, but still. This one has all sorts of schmuss on it as well. This is Robert Silverberg, The Book of Skulls, one of his more effective novels, one of his more effective standalone novels. I had never seen this cover in America before, so I grabbed it when I saw it. Okay, we have a battered mass market paperback. See, this I would never. I don't think I could get a read out of this. I'm glad I have an ebook of it, and the ebooks are free. It's free on Project Gutenberg. This is The King of Elfland's Daughter by Lord Dunsany with this Art Deco. Is this 1970s? It must be 1969. Close enough. There was a later cover. There was a later cover for this book that looked much more like a standard fantasy novel. This is incredibly good. One of the greatest fantasy novels ever written. So, cover notwithstanding, if you haven't read this, you have many, many, many options to get a copy. Okay, all right. This is definitely just a marker for the future at the Brattle. This is Gene Wolfe. This is The Claw of the Conciliator. Book 2 in the Book of the New Sun. So not The Shadow of the Torturer, this is an old Timescape mass market paperback. And I grabbed this because, like I said, you never see mass markets. There are fewer and fewer of them out in the world. As they get bought or destroyed or fall apart, there are fewer and fewer of them. They aren't made anymore. And I once had all of the New Sun books in Timescape mass market paperbacks, just like this one. And I got rid of them, no idea why. Drowned in the Mississippi, or destroyed in a tornado, or lost in a fire, or killed by beagles. I don't know what it was. But I saw this at the shop and thought, well, okay, don't be a stickler that you don't have any others. I don't have Shadow of the Torture in a mass market paperback. Don't be a stickler, because guaranteed if you pass this up, book 2, then someday you will go to the Brattle and book 1 and 3 and 4 will be there, and this won't be, and you won't have it, so grab it. So I have it. It's badly lonely because there are no others. Okay, then we have Alan Dean Foster, The Indefatigable Alan Dean Foster. These are collections of short stories. The first book is With Friends Like These, and then the second one is Who Needs Enemies? So we have the two of them together. There have been many miserable periods in my life where I've only had one, not the other. You've got to have both of them. Okay, then we have doubles. We haven't had many doubles this time around. This is also Alan Dean Foster. This is his book For Love of Mother Not. One of his best books. One of his most moving books. I found a double of it because I grab them when I see them. Let's just put it that way. Then we have Orphan Star. What is this? Oh, goodness. Here is Orphan Star. All right, I have two. I have 2 copies of Orphan Star. Pippin Flinks, his duo, his recurring duo. Also over here, within easy reach, is Blood Hype, another Pippin Flinks adventure. So those shouldn't be over there as long as I can see them. I won't overdo it. I'm going to redo all of this stuff once we're done with these bookcases in a year or so. Then more Alan Dean Foster. I think this wraps things up for Alan Dean Foster. This is Nor Crystal Tears, a first contact novel set in his broader fictional universe, but also wonderfully, wonderfully done. Nor Crystal Tears and For Love of Mother Not are some of his best books. I just think they're fantastic. Then we have Clifford Seamack. We've already seen Clifford Seamack. We saw The Fellowship of the Talisman. This is his book Enchanted Pilgrimage. Classic fantasy cover with a badger and everything, but this is not just classic fantasy. Seamack was too inventive for that. We have the Avon Fantasy Reader, despite the fact that the guy on the cover is holding a ray gun, and he's obviously protecting Barbarella, so not much in the way of fantasy going on the cover. But what's in here? You will doubtless want to know. This, of course, is edited by Don Walheim. The Witch from Hell's Kitchen by Robert E. Howard. Black Thirst by C.L. Moore, A Victim of Higher Space by Algernon Blackwood, The Sapphire Simon by Nixin Dialis, A Voice in the Night by William Hope Hodgson, The Crawling Horror by Thorpe McCloskey, The Kelpie by Manly Wade Wellman. Okay, so I obviously haven't got to this thing yet because 2 of those I haven't read. Oh, okay, great. All right, this next one is David Drake, who was one half of the writing duo for Killer. This is his book, The Dragon, which is about King Arthur. This is the wildest, most violent, most gritty King Arthur novel I've ever read. I love it. Absolutely love it. As a take on King Arthur, I absolutely love it. Okay, then we have in the tradition of Conan, this is Gardner Fox, and this is Kirik Fights the Demon World, which we've talked about on this channel. And a weird cover there. I enjoyed it for pure pulp reasons. We have The Darkness of Diamondia by A. Van Vogt. This classic old mass market paperback might hold up to a reread. You never know. I'll find out because we have a science fiction event coming up, right? Rocket Summer is coming up in July. When half of these things, most of the things that I've shown you so far, fit Rocket Summer. Then we have Rutledge Etheridge, whatever. Barry O'Connell. We have Barry O'Connell, and this is his book, Brother John, which I quite liked. It says it's a novel of the duelists. I have no idea if there were any others. I enjoyed this as a Bildun's romance, science fiction, pulpy type thing. Okay, then we have two books. Flashing Swords, edited by Lynn Carter. This is Flashing Swords number 1. And then I have Flashing Swords number 5. Or number 4, rather. Barbarians and Black Magicians. And these have most of the usual suspects. Flashing Swords number 1 is dedicated to Robert E. Howard, the late Robert E. Howard. Sadness of the Executioner by Fritz Leiber. Morion by Jack Vance. The Merman's Children by Poul Anderson. And The Higher Heresies of Dollimore by Lynn Carter. And then number 4 has what? Bagful of Dreams by Jack Vance. The Tupilak by Poul Anderson. Storm in a Bottle by John Jakes. Swords Against the Marlook by Catherine Kutz. And The Land Beyond the World by Michael Moorcock. The Flashing Swords anthologies are really, really good. They're really enjoyable. Okay, then we have Keith Roberts. This is The Furies, with bugs on the cover that I'm never going to be able to think about the same way since I've read The Ant Collective. I'm never going to be able to think about these things the way I used to. This is just an old pulpy thing. What did this come out in? The 1960s? Yeah, 1966. So perfect, I would think, for Rocket Summer. I believe our demarcation for Rocket Summer is 1970. You can't go any later than that. Okay, then we have Vera Chapman, her novel The Green Knight, with the Hildebrandt Brothers cover there. A novelization, a dramatization of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, the great story. We have another Daw yellow spine mass market paperback. This is Heroic Fantasy, just a big fat anthology. This is twice the size of most Daw books. And what is in here? Who is in here? The Valley or the Sorrows by Galad Elfhansen. Sand Sister by Andre Norton. Ghoul's Head by Dawn Walsh. Astral Stray by Adrian Cole. Blood in the Mist by E.C. Tubb. The Murderous Dove by Tanith Lee. Death in Jukun by Charles Saunders. The De Patrice Ring by H. Warner Munn. The Hero Who Returned by Gerald Page. The Riddle of the Horn by Darrell Schweitzer. The Age of the Warrior by Hank Reinhardt. The Mistaken Oracle by A.E. Silas. Demon Song by F. Paul Wilson. And The Seeker in the Fortress by Manly Wade Wellman. That has probably 10 things that I've never read. And 3 authors I've never heard of. Okay, then we have Joan Vinge. This is The Snow Queen. I grabbed this out of a sense of mercy, but then I noticed this is not going to hold up to read. I really need a nice flexible trade paperback of The Snow Queen if I'm going to do a reread. Same thing here. This will do just fine for Rocket Summer, and then it'll be in 10 pieces, so I'll be done with it. This is from 1962, and this is a century of science fiction, edited by Damon White, whose science fiction by him I have almost nothing. So who's in here? Stanley Weinbaum, Ambrose Bierce, Isaac Asimov, Brian Aldiss, H.G. Wells, Alfred Bester, Phil Farmer, Keith Larmer. Great. Fantastic. And then finally, another anthology volume. This is Swords Against Darkness, number 4. Edited by Andrew Offutt. So just another big fantasy thing here. And who is in here? Hopefully an Andrew Offutt story is in here. Charles Saunders again. Jeff Swickifer. Ardeth Mayhair. Gordon Linzer. Tanith Lee. Poul Anderson. Brian Lumley. Diana Paxson. Joey Froelich. Charles DeLint. Orson Scott Card. And Manly Wade Wellman again. He's holding down the anchor position in all of these anthologies. So there you go. That is the whole of shelf number 3. We are now done with shelf number 3. I've got a mess here. I've got to put all these things back where they were, but we are going to move on to shelf number 4. I don't know if that's going to be possible while I am in this position, so I might have to play around with a chair of some kind. But I'll figure that out next time. So I'll wrap this up for now, and I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.